Hello, citizens. Welcome to Escambia Citizens Watch Live. I'm John Singley, your host. Today we're going to begin a new series on a body of water, what the Spanish called Beautiful Bayou, or simply Bayou Chico. This bayou has been a part of Pensacola history since the Spanish first explored. Spanish galleons first anchored in the bayou in the 17th century. Both Spanish General Galvez and American General Jackson, along with their armies, camped on its shores. Ships were built in the bayou for both world wars, and vessels of all sizes are still being built there today. Timber and chemicals were an industrial mainstay in the 20th century and provided jobs for thousands of local residents. But all of this activity and the growth after the war of suburban neighborhoods along the bayou's watershed produced a legacy of pollution that haunts the bayou until now. In this series, we're going to look at how we got here, what are the waters that make up this watershed, and ongoing efforts to restore this natural treasure. Today, we have in the studio with us Escambia County Director of Natural Resources, Taylor Kirschenfeld. People know him as Chips, and he's going to talk with us about the history of the bayou, the history and ongoing efforts at restoration, how we got to this position, what role the hidden lakes may play, and what does the future look like. So Chip, thank you for joining with us.
John, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
For those who've never met you, tell us a little bit about yourself.
John, originally from Alabama, grew up in the Montgomery area. Family had a summer place down in Destin and spent summers there growing up, enjoying surfing and scuba diving and fishing and water skiing. Everything I liked to do, all my hobbies were centered around the beach. So it was inevitable that I was going to study marine biology and end up living here in this area. My educational background, I did my undergraduate work at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and graduate school was here at the University of West Florida in Pensacola, and also at the Dauphin Island Sea Lab over in the Mobile area.
Chips, you brought with us some pictures today and also some slides to talk about the county and the state's ongoing restoration efforts. So I'll turn this over to you, sir.
Well, thank you, John. I've been working in the Bayou Chico watershed for about 30 years now, originally starting 30 years ago with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, and then for the last 20 years with Escambia County. You did a great job introducing the legacy issues in Bayou Chico and some of the history. There are some high levels of contaminants in the sediment, PAHs, PCBs, dioxins, metals. The water body and the watershed is impaired for fecal coliform bacteria and also historically has low dissolved oxygen levels, mainly from the organic decomposition of the wood byproducts from all the wood treating that occurred in the area. So we have had these legacy issues, which are not that uncommon for any bayou that is industrialized, as Bayou Chico was. The surface area of Bayou Chico is only about 200 acres, but notice the watershed is over 6,000 acres. So when we talk about Bayou Chico, we're really talking about Jones Creek and Jackson Creek and Maggie's Ditch, these three tributaries that flow into Bayou Chico. And we're also talking about the whole Jones Swamp Wetland Preserve, which is over 700 acres to the west of Bayou Chico. Also, you mentioned the history of industrial development and starting in the 1820s. The lumber mills, Newport Industries came about in 1916, where they extracted turpentine from the pine stumps. Pensacola Shipyard was built in 1917. The Weiss Fricker Lumber Mill in 1921, Armstrong Industries in 1927. Interestingly enough, in 1957, a local judge ordered primary treatment of all these industrial discharges and these industrial wastes. Even at that early date in 1957, people realized that the water quality and these industries that were located there on Bayou Chico were causing some issues and problems. Soon after that, 1962, the president of Weiss-Fricker Lumber Company criticized these efforts to clean the bayou. He wanted to keep it as an industrial bayou so that they could continue with their wood treating activities. And by 1971, we had 8 industrial and domestic waste sources, including a wastewater treatment plant, discharging directly into Bayou Chico. So there's a long history of contamination issues and insults to the bayou that we've been dealing with now for the last 30 years or so. This map was one of the earlier maps that I found from 1895, and it shows a sawmill, Brent's Sawmill, and you can see how that wharf extends way out into Pensacola Bay from the mouth of Bayou Chico, from the area where Sanders Beach Community Center would be today. And also you can see a railroad bridge and another bridge crossing the mouth of the bayou right there as it enters Pensacola Bay. This was the first bridge, the automobile bridge and pedestrian bridge in 1900. We had a covered bridge over Bayou Chico. The Pensacola shipyard, as I mentioned, was built in 1917. You can actually see the spoil island there from the dredging that occurred. Also in the background, you can, as you look out toward Pensacola Bay, you can see the railroad bridge and that covered bridge that cross the mouth of the bayou. This aerial photograph from 1940 shows again the bridge crossing toward the mouth of the bayou near where the Ore House restaurant is today. But also you'll notice as you go back to the upper left, you'll see another railroad bridge crossing the bayou as you move up to those northern arms, the northeast and the northwest arms, where Jackson Creek and Maggie's Ditch come into the bayou.
Chips, one thing I notice in this picture is on the west and northwest shores here, the Edgewater area as we know it today was totally undeveloped.
Totally undeveloped in 1940. You're exactly right. And notice also there is no Navy Boulevard that crosses the bayou up there just north of that railroad bridge that did connect Pensacola Shipyard on the east with Patty Shipyard on the west. So a lot of changes, obviously, since 1940. Over on the far right, you can actually see the jetty that was constructed for Joe Patty's seafood, and you can see that that's in existence there at the time. This is a photograph showing some of the wood treating activities in the bayou. This is from the Mahogany Mill area, where these mahogany logs were brought in from Central and South America, and they were just floated in this cesspool of wood preservatives. And of course, all of that leaked out into the bayou and caused all sorts of environmental issues at the time.
I noticed one of the county's newest boat ramps is named Mahogany Mill Boat Ramp. I guess it's on the side of the old mill over there.
Yeah, that's exactly right, John. That's one of the newer projects that the county has done, and it is named after this old Mahogany Mill wood treating facility. As we were constructing that boat ramp, we did unearth some real black turpentine that was underneath the soil, and so we had to excavate that and clean that up and remediate that during construction. As I mentioned, I worked with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection before I came to work with the county. And at that time, in the 1980s, one of our initiatives was to try to start restoration activities in Bayou Chico. The Water Management District also was involved, as was the Bayou Chico Association. They were very active in promoting restoration of the bayou. At the time, I remember Laverne Matheson and Dr. Bob Austin, some of you may remember, who really were instrumental in the political aspirations of the Bayou Chico Association in trying to get the bayou cleaned up. Some of those initial restoration projects, starting in the 1980s and 1990s, included closing up those wood treating operations like the Mahogany Mill operation. There was a wastewater treatment plant that discharged into Jones Creek.
Where was that plant located? Could you describe where today it would have been?
Yes, it's just west of Old Quarryfield Road. There still is a facility there owned by ECUA. Now it's more of a pump station.
Yes.
But that was the wastewater treatment facility that discharged right into Jones Creek, that flowed right into Bayou Chico.
Right. Most of you know it over there. That's one of your cooking oil drop-off stations for
That's
ECUA right there. Okay.
Exactly. Also, one of the projects we did in the 1990s was remove that train trestle, which was just south of where the Navy Boulevard Bridge is. That train trestle restricted the flow of water into those upper arms of the bayou, so removing that helped with water circulation in the bayou. We also, at the time, at the Department of Environmental Protection, formed an ecosystem restoration section. We had greenhouses where we were growing emergent marsh vegetation. We did several shoreline restoration projects in the bayou, trying to reestablish that intertidal zone that's so important to species diversity. Juanita Williams Stormwater Project was constructed at the time. The W Street Weir was constructed as a sediment trap. And also the Jones Creek Trail and Boardwalk were initiated about this time. I have a few photographs here. This is the old train trestle. Now this would be looking from, let's say, the Navy Boulevard Bridge out toward the bayou, but this was the train trestle that crossed, and you can see how that would restrict the flow of water coming through that narrow opening there. And then this is an after photograph that shows the train trestle after it was removed, and you can see there on the right side of that channel where we planted emergent marsh vegetation to reestablish some of the wetland shoreline there. This was one of the early projects to create an educational boardwalk through the Jones Creek area and the Jones Swamp Preserve. This is dated 1998, and you can see a bird box there where we were trying to restore some of the avian fauna. And also you can see a wooden boardwalk there crossing some of the wetland areas of Jones Creek. And many of you, I'm sure, remember the old drawbridge that crossed Bayou Chico. That was right there where the ore house is now located. And then this is an aerial photograph showing the construction of the new bridge with the old drawbridge there in the background. I mentioned the W Street Weir sediment trap. As the name implies, it's right there along W Street. You can see it as you drive by. But you can see how that weir traps the sediment coming in from the northeast. This would be from the Maggie's Ditch area. And that sediment trap is cleaned out and maintained by the Public Works Department of the county to keep sediment from entering Bayou Chico and smothering the benthic populations.
Chips, in the 2014 500-year flood, they call it. In that area up there, was this weir sediment trap in position during that time, or is this subsequent to that?
It was constructed about 1998, 1999, so it was in position.
So you had a good, after that rain event, you had a good opportunity to assess the effectiveness of something like this.
We did. There was quite a bit of sediment that was removed from that sediment trap after that 2014 storm, and it continues to function very well during these episodic high rain events that we have. After 2000, when I came to work with Escambia County, these are some of the projects we did during that 10-year period before the BP oil spill. And I sort of set that 2010 date because after the BP oil spill, we had quite an infusion of funds come in to do some other projects. So I wanted to talk about some of those current projects now. But I did want people to realize that this decade, from 2001 to 2010, there were still quite a few projects done in the Bayou Chico watershed to try to improve water quality and improve the natural resources.
Glen Key is a new name for me. What can you say about that?
That Glen Key stormwater pond is right behind Sonny's Barbecue Restaurant on Navy Boulevard. That stormwater pond was built to collect and treat the stormwater running off the impervious surfaces of that parking lot for the shopping center right behind it. There was also an educational boardwalk that was constructed there, and that tied into the Jones Creek boardwalk that we had talked about previously. And so that was the beginning of what's known as this Southwest Greenway that is under construction. 4 miles of it have been completed, extending from Old Coreyfield Road and Lexington Terrace Park, extending westward all the way to Perdido Bay. So we've got about 4 miles of that 12 miles completed now, and I've got some photographs showing some of the bridges and the elevated walkways that have been constructed all the way to Fairfield Drive.
So you said earlier that the Jones Swamp Preserve area could be called one of the headwaters of Bayou Chico.
Yes. Jones Creek and Jackson Creek both flow into Bayou Chico from the west, and studies by the University of West Florida, as well as our Water Quality Division with Escambia County, have shown that most of the stormwater pollutants, the fecal coliform bacteria and the metals that are problematic in Bayou Chico today, are coming in through these tributaries. They're coming in through Jones Creek, Jackson Creek, and Maggie's Ditch. So you'll notice many of these projects that we've been doing over the last 20 or 30 years have been up in the watersheds. Remember, over 2,000 acres or 6,000 acres of the watershed. So doing projects up in the watershed to reduce stormwater runoff and improve water quality trickles down to improving water quality in Bayou Chico.
Chips, for those of us who are new to the area and are hearing about this for the first time, could you give us a real quick boundaries of this Jones Swamp Preserve? In other words, what road would mark the southern boundary? What area would mark the northern boundary? Just to give our viewers a little geographical reference here.
Sure. The Jones Swamp Wetland Preserve would extend south of Highway 98, where the Naval Hospital is, and Pensacola State College Warrington campus. That would be the northern boundary as Highway 98 runs westward. The southern boundary would be Gulf Beach Highway. So all of that area between Gulf Beach Highway and Highway 98, there's about 700 acres of this Jones Swamp Wetland Preserve. Some of the other projects we did, we were able to purchase some property that we now lease to the Muskogee Creek Indians for a Native American museum called Native Paths. The Maggie's Ditch Wetland Floodplain Restoration Project was another project we did. Lexington Terrace, wetland stormwater ponds. And then in 2006, the navigational channel, the Corps of Engineers dredged that because some of the ships that Patty Shipyard was building at the time were bumping the bottom of the channel.
Now that navigational channel is a federal jurisdiction. In other words, they pay for that and they do the permitting for that, and that occurs on a timeline that they consult with the state and the county, I'm sure, but they kind of they're in charge of that. Is that correct?
That's correct. It is a Corps of Engineers maintained navigational channel, and the Corps of Engineers maintains that on an as-needed basis. Here's a couple of photographs from that Southwest Greenway. You can see the elevated walkways that extend about 3 or 4 miles through the Jones Swamp Preserve. And also we have a couple of aluminum bridges that cross Jones Creek. So if you haven't been out there, this is a nice hiking trail, especially this time of the year before the weather gets too hot. It's a good time to be out there.
Where would the trailhead be? Can you give us an address, a point on the map there?
I think the best place to probably start would be at the far east end, which would be Lexington Terrace Park, Old Quarryfield Road. That would be the entrance to the trail, and then you can take it all the way. We just completed it all the way to Fairfield Drive. So that's a nice hike. It is.
And your well-behaved dogs are welcome.
Dogs and people ride bicycles along there. This is also heavily used for people that are walking up and back to that Walmart there on Navy Boulevard. We see shopping carts and Walmart bags along the walkway every now and then. I did want to talk for a minute about some of the current projects that Escambia County is working on. These are all restore projects. These were all funded through the settlement agreement with BP after the oil spill. You can see 8 projects here that are either completed or in progress. We mentioned the Mahogany Mill boat ramp in Bayou Chico that is completed. There are a couple of other projects, contaminated sediment removal and stormwater and wastewater improvements in the Beach Haven community. Those are underway. And then the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation funded 5 projects. 2 of those have been completed, the Bill Gregory Park and R Street at Maggie's Ditch. Those are both on the northeast arm of Bayou Chico. Those have been completed by the city of Pensacola. And then the Beach Haven project, Jackson Creek and Jones Creek, those are all under construction at the time. So this $20 million worth of projects here are anticipated to have a tremendous benefit to the water quality and the health of Bayou Chico. This map just sort of shows through these yellow stars where some of these projects are located. We talked about the northeast arm up there at Maggie's Ditch. Over on the northwest is where Jackson Creek flows into Bayou Chico. You can see where the old train trestle was right there in the middle, crossing the bayou. Down in the lower left are all of the Jones Creek projects. And then the lower right shows the location of that Mahogany Mill boat ramp.
Chips, your focus narrowly here on remediation, and I think that's what the people are interested in here. But these upper arms, the east one and the west one, it gets pretty shallow in there. And is there any possibility that remediation could be coupled with navigational dredging up in that area? I mean, are the two harmonious, or are they really have to be managed as separate issues?
Well, the W Street weir that we talked about there in that northeast arm, that was put in place to try to reduce the sediment flowing into that northeast arm because the bayou was shallowing in that area. We have a design firm, an engineering firm on board now that is doing the preliminary work to assess removing contaminated sediment in the bayou, and they will be looking at several different options. One of those would be physically removing or dredging some of these contaminated sediments, and so with that you would also have the benefit of removing some of that legacy sediment that's up there in those northeast and northwest arms. Yes.
Can we talk a little bit about on this map here, over there on the western arm, there was a series of lakes over there. It looks like there's 3 of them that I think Jackson Creek flows in that vicinity. Those lakes, are those legacy, were those natural lakes, or were they used for industrial purposes?
Those were man-made lakes. They were commonly referred to as the Clark sand pits. They were mined for sand. There was white beach quality sand that was extracted from those lakes that was actually used to renourish Pensacola Beach at one time. So there is a long history of commercial activity in the creation of those lakes.
So those lakes became county property here not that long ago, is that correct?
That's correct. In preparation for the dredging of the navigational channel in 2006, as I mentioned, Laverne Matheson, Dr. Bob Austin with the Bayou Chico Association were very instrumental in convincing the Northwest Florida Water Management District to provide funding, grant funding to the county to purchase that property. The idea at the time was that when that navigational channel was dredged, that the dredged material from that dredging event would be pumped to those lakes for disposal. And of those 3 lakes, the northernmost lake on the north side of Jackson Creek, that was the lake where the dredged material was deposited.
So, Chips, this map, I think, gives us all a good look at how it's all interconnected. I think that the idea that you start the remediation efforts upstream is sort of the long-term plan you have to start with, but then you move into the current and ongoing projects down in the main body of water down there.
That's exactly right. Starting in the 1980s with the Department of Environmental Protection and the Water Management District, projects began in the northeast arm, Maggie's Ditch, the northwest arm of Jackson Creek, and the southwest arm where Jones Creek comes in. So there's been a history now of 30 years of trying to address the inputs that were causing water quality issues in Bayou Chico. The stormwater inputs, the fertilizers, and the pet wastes, and all of the sources that can contribute to these high bacteria loads in Bayou Chico. So we feel like with all of the stormwater projects and the wetland restoration projects, the stream restoration projects, the weirs that we talked about, after doing all of those projects, we feel like we have done a pretty good job of addressing the inputs coming into Bayou Chico. So now the time is right to start addressing the contaminated sediments that are in Bayou Chico.
In your map here of the current projects, you don't show real well here, and I realize this is just for a quick presentation, but is Sanders Beach included in any of these multi-government projects when they fall under the BMAP or the Basin Management Plan, so to speak?
Sanders Beach is really, in my view, outside of the mouth of Bayou Chico. But it is a monitoring site that the health department monitors in their Healthy Beaches program. It is a site that has had a history of high bacteria loads, not only from stormwater runoff in that area, but also when Bayou Chico flushes right by there. There have been proposals in the past to build things like a living shoreline project there in the Sanders Beach area, but it has met with opposition from the yacht club that did not feel like that would be conducive to the youth sailing program that they have there. Some of these other photographs that I have here, John, this shows the Mahogany Mill boat ramp that we talked about. There was also in the bottom right, you can see a living shoreline that was being constructed with bagged oyster shells that were recycled from area restaurants. This shows again, a map of Bayou Chico with highlighted areas of some of those current projects that are underway. In the lower left, you see in yellow the Beach Haven community just on the north side of Gulf Beach Highway. And that's where that new stormwater infrastructure and wastewater new sewer lines are being put in. That area historically has had septic tanks, which we know that close to a water body can cause problems and issues. In the top right, you can see some of those projects in the Maggie's Ditch area that have been done. So this kind of gives you an overview of some of those current projects. So those are pretty much the slides that I had brought with me today, John. But certainly if we have some other issues we want to talk about, we sure can.
Well, I think you've given us a lot to think about here, and hopefully a lot of us are much smarter than we were, say, an hour ago on what's going on down there. One thing is clear to me, Chips, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the impairment of this watershed did not occur overnight, and it seems like the restoration to the Spanish, what the Spanish saw as the beautiful bayou, is not going to happen overnight. Right. It's a long game.
Yeah. We talked about 100 years of industrial activities and commercial activities, everything from wastewater treatment plants to wood treating facilities. And you're right, it's not going to be healed, and we're not going to all of a sudden have pristine water quality overnight. I've tried to show you that for 30 years, at least from my perspective and my involvement, we've been working hard to address these issues in Bayou Chico. The Bayou Chico Association has been a wonderful partner. They have been sort of handling the political side of things and trying to help us get political support for the projects that we're doing. But we have come a long way. The water quality in Bayou Chico is better than it was 30 years ago as a result of the projects that have been done. We have $20 million worth of projects that are underway right now, and there's another $12 million that's appropriated from the state expenditure plan, again from the BP money, that will be used for that contaminated sediment removal project. And that design is occurring now. It'll probably go on for about a year or so. We will be having public involvement meetings. We will be having stakeholder meetings, and we will be getting input this summer and later on in the fall for some different ideas that those consulting professionals are going to suggest. So hopefully next spring about this time we'll have a good plan for that.
Yeah. Chips, as you look into the future, I don't know how your crystal ball is here, but do you see the bayou and its watershed evolving into more of a recreational use as opposed to an industrial use?
I think so. We've seen the wood treating companies close up. We've seen the wastewater treatment plant close. We now have the Mahogany Bill boat ramp, so we certainly have public recreational opportunities there. There are plans that I've seen for maybe new apartments, new condominiums along the bayou. There's a new marina in that northern part of the bayou. So, yes, I think we'll see a mixed use for that bayou. I'm sure Patty Shipyard will continue to be a good stakeholder and a good partner in future activities. Pensacola Shipyard is now a clean marina, meaning they meet certain best management practices.
That's an impressive piece of property. I was up there the other day, and I was just amazed. It looked like a Navy base almost. Everything was clean and perfect. It was.
They do a great job. So I think that people realize that the stakeholders, the property owners, the commercial interests on the bayou, everybody knows that they have a stake in the future of the bayou. And not only improving the water quality and the recreational opportunities for the bayou, but also as you improve those, you also improve the economy, and the real estate prices go up.
Right.
So there's that incentive also.
Yeah, so Chips, I don't know if there's any public property on the main bodies of the bayou up there, the future for additional parks, for example, but I guess that would be part of good planning in the future, is look to see if those possibilities would exist.
John, I was thinking about that the other day. Right now Skanska has property leased. The old Runyon shipyard is leased as a laydown yard for the construction of the new 3-mile bridge. But that construction will be wrapping up over the next 2 or 3 years. And that property, that old Runyon shipyard property on the northern shore of the bayou, would be an excellent potential location for a park to give people a nice recreational opportunity. And
Chips, along the watershed, what are the possibilities for public parks extending from the Jones Swamp watershed down through the lakes, down through there? I guess at one time I was seeing on social media not long ago about the history of the Idlewood neighborhood and turn of the century summer homes and fish camps and things down. I guess that's on the northeast arm of the bayou down there. What purposes in the county property, which includes the lakes out there, what were the purposes specifically that they were purchased? Or the grant was given?
Sure. The Water Management District provided the county with grant funds to purchase those old sand pits, the lakes, for the dredging of the navigational channel to dispose of the dredged material. That was the use at the time. That was 13 years ago. As time goes by, as you know, politically, the county commissioners will decide, what potential future uses that area has, whether it becomes recreational or whether it, continues to be used for disposal of dredged material. That's a political decision, and that remains to be seen.
We just recently had the opportunity here at ECW Live to go visit the lakes, and we put up some pictures. I think Teresa may have some back there in her computer somewhere. There we go. And we put those up in our promotional material at ECW Live, and we got a large number of public comments about the lakes, particularly their natural beauty and what's going to happen in the future and what's the state of their contamination, if they're contaminated. So I think the public interest in this is growing. So we wanted to give you an opportunity to lay it out. And what I hear you saying is future use is a political decision, but the transfer of the property of these hidden lakes, as we call them, to the county documents was originally for the disposal of dredge spoils. So any future use of this, I hear you saying, will be determined by our elected representatives. So Chip, as we conclude here this afternoon, is there any last thoughts you'd like to leave with the audience?
I will say it was a beautiful weekend this last weekend. I was out on my boat. I was up in Bayou Chico, and many of you may have noticed there are healthy-looking oysters along the shoreline of Bayou Chico, and that's a good sign. Oysters are sort of the sentinel species of many water quality programs. When you see healthy oysters, that means the water is conducive, the water quality is conducive for health. Oysters also, each oyster filters 50 gallons of water every day. So when you start getting a healthy oyster population in a water body like Bayou Chico, you're going to start seeing less turbidity, less algae, better water clarity. So that was a promising sign.
Chips, we're grateful that you could join us today. These are questions that many of us have had, and I've got one final question before we go. How did you come about the name Chips? What's the story there?
Well, interestingly enough, I mentioned I was born in Alabama. My parents had recently relocated to Alabama from New York, and when I was born, my parents were told that male babies in the South have to have a nickname, and so I'm just glad it wasn't Bubba. So that was the nickname I've had since birth.
Or Stretch.
Or Stretch. That's right.
Chips Kirschenfeld has been our guest today on ECW Live as we begin our series on the beautiful Bayou Chico, and its watershed and what it has meant to us in the past and what it could mean to us in the future. So for Teresa Hill, our producer, Mr. Kirschenfeld, and myself, John Singley, thank you for joining with us, and we'll continue these series. If you have any suggestions for us as we go forward looking at each one of these bodies of water, just put a comment on the ECW Live page or your favorite Facebook group page, whichever one you'd like, and we welcome those and we'll certainly consider it. So thank you once again and have a great day.